My name is Mark Sullivan, 38 years old, and I run a small but successful construction company in Chicago. I've worked hard to get where I am today, long hours, constant hustle, and a never-ending grind to provide for my family. I met my wife, Jessica, when I was in my late 20s, and she was a bright, energetic 24-year-old who seemed like the perfect woman. She was beautiful, with long brunette hair, sparkling green eyes, and a smile that could light up a room. We clicked instantly, and before I knew it, we were married. Jessica was always a bit of a social butterfly, and when we got married, I never thought much of her frequent girls' nights out or her occasional business trips for the marketing firm she worked at. She was 33 years old, working her way up the corporate ladder, making good money, and often telling me about how her boss, James Richards, a 40-year-old millionaire businessman, was always giving her opportunities for growth and development. But over the past 6 months, I noticed things were different. She seemed distracted, less affectionate, and more secretive. She'd be on her phone all the time, texting, laughing at something I couldn't quite see. The spark that used to exist between us was slowly fading, and at first, I convinced myself that I was just being paranoid. I had my own stress with work, and I didn't want to believe she was losing interest in me. That all changed one Saturday afternoon. It was supposed to be a relaxing weekend, just the two of us. But when Jessica announced that she was going to a last-minute business dinner with James, something didn't sit right with me. I had been dealing with a construction site crisis, so I knew she'd be out 4 hours. Something about her hesitation when she mentioned the dinner, the way she avoided eye contact, set off an alarm in my head. I decided to follow her. I drove to the upscale restaurant she said she was going to, but when I got there, I didn't see her car. So I waited, parked a few blocks away, and observed. I knew Jessica's routine. I knew how she walked, how she dressed when she was trying to impress. My gut was telling me I needed to dig deeper. I followed her phone's location through an app we had shared, which was another thing that had always felt innocent before. It was supposed to be for safety, but now, I felt something different in my chest, a tightness I couldn't shake. The location pinged me to an apartment complex across town. I felt my heart pound in my chest as I made my way there. I parked down the street and approached the building on foot. Then, I saw her, Jessica, my wife, entering a high-rise building with none other than James Richards. I tried to stay calm, but the blood rushed to my head, and all I could think about was confronting them both. I stood there, watching through the glass doors. I watched as they walked together, laughing, with no care in the world. My hands were shaking, but I couldn't stop myself. I followed them in. I entered the building through a side door, keeping a safe distance, my mind racing. As I approached the elevator bank, I saw Jessica and James step into the elevator. But as the door closed, I noticed something I hadn't expected. Another man, tall, well-dressed, joined them. He was in his late 30s, wearing a designer suit. He gave Jessica a kiss on the cheek, and she didn't hesitate. She smiled and leaned into him, making small talk as if this was all completely normal. It hit me like a freight train. This wasn't just an affair. This was something deeper, something more twisted. My wife was playing me for a fool. The elevator door closed, and I was left standing there, frozen in shock. My breath felt like it had been ripped from my chest, my body still in disbelief. 3 men? How could this happen? The woman I had trusted for over a decade, who I had given my everything to, was in a relationship with not 1, but 3 men. I knew I couldn't stand there forever. I had to do something. I ran up the stairs to the next floor and tried to get into the apartment, but I needed to be sure before I made a scene. I had to confirm what was happening, but I had no idea how deep this betrayal ran. I saw the elevator doors open again, and out stepped Jessica, James, and the 3rd man. She looked directly at me, and for a moment, our eyes locked. It was like time stopped, but it wasn't the look of shock or surprise I expected. No, her face was completely composed, like she had no problem at all with what was happening. She knew I was there. With my heart pounding, I waited until they entered the apartment, then followed them. I made sure to keep my distance, waiting for the perfect moment to confront them. When the door finally closed behind them, I stepped forward and rang the doorbell. I didn't care who answered. I wasn't going to let this slide. The door swung open, and there she was, Jessica, standing in front of me, eyes wide with surprise but no remorse. Behind her, I could hear the laughter of James and the 3rd man. I didn't even wait for her to speak. "What the hell is this, Jessica?" I barked. "What the hell are you doing?" Her face went pale as she realized I wasn't going to let this go. The men in the background went silent, their grins fading as they knew something was about to unfold. Before she could answer, I saw the 3rd man step forward. He was the one who had kissed her earlier. He crossed his arms and gave me a cold, condescending look. "Who are you to question what she does?" he spat. "She's not your property, Mark." Something inside me snapped. In that moment, everything hit me: the betrayal, the lies, the hurt. I wasn't just angry, I was furious. But before I could respond, the door slammed shut. It was the beginning of the end, and I was about to unleash hell. I stood outside that door, my fists clenched so tightly that my nails dug into my palms. My mind was racing, my heart pounding like a drum. It wasn't just Jessica who had betrayed me, it was the smugness of those men, the gall of that third guy to talk down to me in my own wife's presence. I felt like my world had been flipped upside down. I wasn't going to just walk away. No, I needed answers. I needed to know how deep this betrayal went. So, I waited. I didn't leave the building. Instead, I went back to my car, parked a block away, and watched the front entrance like a hawk. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I knew I couldn't leave without something concrete. My gut told me there was more to this than just cheating. About 2 hours later, the door opened, and the third man, the one who had kissed Jessica earlier, walked out. He looked completely unbothered, scrolling on his phone as he got into a black BMW and sped off. Not long after, James followed. He stepped out of the building, laughing into his phone, before climbing into a sleek, silver Mercedes. I thought that was it. But then, to my surprise, Jessica walked out of the building a few minutes later, not with either of the men but with another guy. This one was younger, probably in his late 20s, wearing a hoodie and ripped jeans. He looked more like someone fresh out of college than a millionaire businessman like James. They didn't hold hands or kiss, but there was an undeniable familiarity in the way they walked together, heads close as they whispered and laughed. I felt like I was going insane. 4 men? Could it really be possible? Was she some kind of master manipulator, a con artist? None of it made sense. I needed more answers, and I wasn't going to get them sitting in my car. I followed them. Jessica and the younger man didn't go far. They walked to a nearby cafe and grabbed a table by the window. I parked across the street and watched them through the glass. My wife was acting completely normal, smiling, laughing, leaning in close to him as if nothing in the world was wrong. My blood boiled. I couldn't believe the audacity. I was about to storm in and confront her again when my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "Mark, stop following her. You don't know what you're getting yourself into." I froze. My hands trembled as I stared at the screen. Who the hell was this? How did they know what I was doing? My first thought was that it had to be one of Jessica's lovers, maybe James, or the smug guy from earlier. But how would they have my number? I quickly typed back, "Who is this? What do you know about my wife?" A few seconds later, another text came through: "She's not who you think she is. Go home before it's too late." My heart sank. Not who I think she is? What the hell did that mean? My mind raced with possibilities, each one darker than the last. Was she part of some kind of criminal operation? Was she using me as a cover for something illegal? I couldn't leave now. Not after that message. Ignoring the warning, I got out of my car and walked into the cafe. Jessica spotted me immediately, her face turning pale. The younger man looked confused, glancing between us as I stormed up to their table. "Jessica," I said, my voice low and steady, "what the hell is going on?" "Mark, you need to leave," she said, her tone sharp, almost panicked. "I'm not going anywhere until you tell me what's happening," I shot back. Who the hell are these men? All of them? And why the hell is someone texting me, warning me about you? Her eyes widened at the mention of the text. She opened her mouth to speak but quickly shut it again. The younger man stood up, trying to play the hero. "Hey, man, you need to calm down," he said, holding up his hands. "You're making a scene." I turned to him, my rage bubbling over. "Sit your ass down. This is between me and my wife." He hesitated, glancing at Jessica, who gave him a subtle nod. He sat back down, his face flushed with embarrassment. Jessica leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Mark, please. Let's talk about this somewhere private." "No," I snapped. "We're talking about this right here, right now." She hesitated, glancing around the cafe. People were starting to stare, whispering to each other. She sighed and leaned in closer. "Fine," she whispered. "But you're not going to like what you hear." "Try me," I said, crossing my arms. She took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. "Mark, this isn't what you think it is. It's not just cheating. I'm working for someone." My blood ran cold. Working for someone? What the hell does that mean? She hesitated, her eyes darting around the room as if she were afraid someone was watching. "I can't say too much," she said. "But James, and the others, they are not just my lovers. They are my clients." "Clients?" I repeated, my voice rising. Are you seriously telling me you're some kind of escort? She winced but didn't deny it. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. My wife was prostituting herself out to these men? And she'd been doing it right under my nose. Why? I demanded, my voice shaking with rage. Why would you do this? Wasn't I enough for you? Didn't I give you everything you could possibly want? Her eyes filled with tears, but I couldn't tell if they were genuine or just another act. It's not about you, Mark, she said quietly. It was never about you. I got involved with something bigger than both of us, and I couldn't get out. Then why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice breaking. Why didn't you come to me for help? She looked away, unable to meet my gaze. Because I knew you'd never forgive me. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. Another text from the unknown number. You're in over your head. Leave now before it's too late. I looked around the cafe, my paranoia skyrocketing. Who was watching me? And what the hell had Jessica gotten herself into? After leaving the cafe, I couldn't think straight. My head was spinning with Jessica's confession, the cryptic texts, and the sheer weight of her betrayal. My wife wasn't just cheating, she was leading a double life, selling herself to powerful men and dragging me into her mess without a shred of guilt. But even as I felt my world crumbling, there was one emotion that began to rise above the chaos rage. The humiliation, the lies, and the audacity of it all. I wasn't just going to sit back and let her walk all over me. No, if she thought she could get away with this, she was dead wrong. I spent the rest of the night in my car, parked in a dimly lit lot, going over everything I had learned. The warning texts, the men, the sheer scope of Jessica's deceit. My thoughts kept circling back to one thing: I needed a plan. Not just any plan, a plan that would make her pay for everything she'd done, and expose her lies to everyone she thought she could fool. Step 1: digging deeper. The next day, I called in sick to work. I wasn't going to let my 9-to-5 job at the auto repair shop get in the way of dismantling Jessica's carefully constructed facade. My first move was to gather as much information as possible. I started by hiring a private investigator. His name was Derek, early 40s, ex-cop, and exactly the kind of nonsense guy I needed. I explained everything to him in detail, sparing no truths about Jessica's clients or her shady double life. Derek raised an eyebrow at the mention of the mysterious texts. Sounds like someone's either trying to protect you or scare you off, he said. Either way, I'll find out who's behind it. Within hours, Derek was on the case, digging into Jessica's financial records, phone history, and every connection she had. Meanwhile, I started building my own arsenal of evidence. I went through her laptop while she was out working. She wasn't stupid enough to leave anything incriminating in plain sight, but I wasn't about to give up that easily. With the help of some basic recovery software, I unearthed a treasure trove of deleted files, emails, text messages, even a spreadsheet of names and payment amounts. The list of men was longer than I expected, and their identities left me reeling. It wasn't just James and the smug bastard from her office. There were lawyers, CEOs, even a local politician. Jessica had created a lucrative little empire for herself, and she was playing with fire. Step 2: setting the trap. Once I had enough evidence, I started laying the groundwork for my revenge. I wasn't going to just confront her again, that would be too easy. No, I wanted to destroy the entire house of cards she had built. The first step was to expose her to the men she had been fooling. I crafted an anonymous email, attaching screenshots of the incriminating emails and texts I had found. I sent it to every single one of her clients, making sure to include a subject line they couldn't ignore: urgent confidential information regarding Jessica Carter. I wasn't sure what kind of response I would get, but I knew one thing for sure: this was going to cause chaos. Step 3: the public spectacle. Jessica had a big charity gala coming up, one she had been bragging about for weeks. It was a high-profile event hosted by none other than James, her first client. She had begged me to attend as her husband, playing the part of the loyal, doting spouse. At the time, I had laughed it off, but now, it was the perfect opportunity. I reached out to Derek and asked him to dig into James. If this man had the audacity to sleep with my wife and mock me in the process, then he deserved to be part of the fallout. Derek didn't disappoint. He uncovered a series of shady business dealings that James had tried to cover up. I added that to my arsenal. Next, I printed out hard copies of every incriminating email, text, and spreadsheet entry I had found. I put them all into a sleek black binder with the title "Jessica Carter: The Double Life of a Housewife" embossed on the front. I wanted this to feel official, but the real kicker? I hired a videographer to follow me discreetly during the gala. If I was going to confront Jessica in front of all her high society friends, I wanted every moment captured on tape. Step 4: the backup plan. Of course, I knew there was a chance Jessica might try to worm her way out of this. She was a master manipulator, after all, so I prepared a backup plan. I contacted a local news outlet and tipped them off about a potential scandal involving James and his charity organization. I didn't give them all the details, but I promised them a story worth covering if they showed up at the gala. Finally, I called in a favor from an old friend, Mike, who worked in IT. He helped me set up a website, a simple, anonymous page that would go live the night of the gala. The website contained all the evidence I had collected, along with a detailed timeline of Jessica's activities. The headline read Jessica Carter and the Men Who Paid Her a Husband story. Step 5: waiting. With everything in place, all I had to do was wait. The charity gala was just a week away, and Jessica had no idea what was coming. Every day that passed felt like an eternity, but the thought of her face when the truth came out kept me going. In the meantime, Derek called with an update on the mysterious texts. "Looks like they are coming from a burner phone," he said. "Hard to trace, but I've got a lead. Someone's definitely watching you, Mark." The news sent a chill down my spine, but I pushed it aside. Whoever was trying to interfere with my revenge would have to wait. For now, my focus was on Jessica and making sure she paid for every lie, every betrayal, and every ounce of humiliation she had caused me. The stage was set, the players were in position, and I was ready to make my move. The night of the charity gala finally arrived, and I had never felt such a mix of nerves and grim satisfaction. I put on my best suit, ironically the one Jessica had bought for me last year, probably with money from one of her clients. Tonight wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming my dignity. Jessica, oblivious to the storm brewing around her, looked stunning as always. She wore a shimmering gold gown that clung to her like a second skin, her makeup flawless, her smile radiant. It was sickening how easily she could act like the perfect wife, even as her entire life was built on lies. "Ready to be the perfect husband tonight?" she teased, linking her arm through mine. I forced a smile. "Oh, I've never been more ready." We arrived at the venue, a sprawling estate lit up like a palace. The place was packed with everyone Jessica adored: CEOs, socialites, politicians. It was her world, and she was the queen of it. Little did she know, her kingdom was about to crumble. The opening act. As we mingled with the crowd, Jessica effortlessly charmed everyone in sight. She introduced me to people like I was some kind of trophy, the loyal husband standing by her side. Every time she laughed, every time she leaned in close to whisper something into someone's ear, I felt the anger bubbling beneath my calm exterior. But I kept my cool. Tonight wasn't just about me, it was about making her pay on my terms. The first sign of chaos came about an hour into the event. My anonymous emails had worked their magic. One by one, the men Jessica had been involved with began to arrive, each one looking increasingly uneasy. James was there, of course, holding court like he owned the place, but even he looked tense when he spotted the others. I caught snippets of their conversations as they huddled together in corners, whispering furiously. It was clear they had no idea what was going on, but they all knew one thing: something was very, very wrong. Jessica, meanwhile, was too busy basking in the attention to notice the confrontation. It wasn't until dinner was served that the real show began. As everyone settled into their seats, I excused myself and stepped out of the room. I had instructed the videographer to follow me discreetly, capturing every moment. I made my way to the small stage at the front of the room, where a microphone stood waiting. With a deep breath, I stepped up, tapped the mic, and spoke. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice steady but laced with a cold edge. "Thank you for being here tonight. I have something very important to share with all of you, something that I believe everyone in this room deserves to know." The crowd fell silent. Jessica's face froze, her fork suspended midair. "I'd like to talk about my wife, Jessica Carter," I continued. "Most of you know her as the elegant, kind-hearted woman sitting right over there." I pointed to her, and all eyes turned in her direction. "But what you don't know is the truth about who she really is." Gasps rippled through the room as I pulled out the black binder I had prepared, holding it up for everyone to see. "This," I said, "is a comprehensive record of Jessica's double life. The lies she's told, the men she's deceived, and the empire of betrayal she's built, right under my nose." Jessica shot to her feet, her face pale as a ghost. "Mark, what the hell are you doing?" she hissed. "Sit down, Jessica," I said, my voice cold. "You've had your turn to lie. Now it's my turn to tell the truth." I began reading excerpts from the emails and texts I had uncovered, naming names and detailing her affairs with James and the others. The crowd erupted into chaos, whispers, gasps, and accusations flying in every direction. James stood up, his face red with anger. This is ridiculous. You have no proof. Oh, but I do, I interrupted, gesturing to the videographer. And I've made sure to capture every single moment of this evening, just in case anyone here wants to deny the truth. Jessica was trembling now, her hands gripping the edge of the table. Mark, please, we can talk about this privately, she pleaded. I ignored her. You want to know the best part? I said, addressing the room. Jessica wasn't just cheating. She was profiting. She kept a spreadsheet of every single payment she received from her clients. Some of you might even recognize your names on this list. I flipped the binder open and began reading off the names, one by one. The room descended into pure pandemonium. The fallout. Security was called, but by then, the damage was done. James stormed out, followed by several other men who looked like they wanted to crawl under the nearest rock. Jessica tried to run after them, but I stopped her in her tracks. Where do you think you're going? I asked, my voice icy. We're not done here. She turned to me, her eyes filled with tears. Why are you doing this? She whispered. Why? I said, laughing bitterly. Because you destroyed our marriage, Jessica. Because you lied to me, to everyone in this room. And because you deserve to face the consequences of your actions. As the chaos unfolded around us, I stepped back, letting the crowd take over. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, and Jessica's carefully curated image crumbled before my eyes. The final blow. Before leaving the venue, I handed the binder to a reporter from the local news outlet I had tipped off. Make sure this gets published, I said. Jessica's face was plastered across every local headline the next morning, her lies exposed for the entire world to see. But I wasn't done yet. The website I had set up went live that night, complete with all the evidence anyone could ever need to see the truth. Jessica's name was trending within hours, her reputation in tatters. And as for me, I walked away from the gala that night with my head held high, knowing that for the first time in months, I had taken back control of my life. The morning after the gala was eerily calm, almost as if the universe had taken a deep breath before exhaling the chaos Jessica had unleashed upon herself. I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating incessantly. Notifications, missed calls, texts, they flooded my screen. Jessica's world had officially imploded, and I was enjoying the front row seat to the fallout. The headlines. Her name was plastered across every local news outlet, accompanied by phrases like socialite exposed for double life, charity queen or con artist, and my personal favorite, the most scandalous charity gala of the year. The website I'd set up had gone viral overnight. People were sharing it across social media, dissecting every sordid detail. Strangers from all over the city, and even beyond, were weighing in, offering their sympathy or reveling in the drama. Jessica's pristine reputation, carefully built over years of manipulation and deceit, was in shambles. Jessica's descent. I didn't hear from Jessica immediately, which surprised me. Part of me expected her to come barging into the house, screaming and crying, but there was nothing. Just silence. Then, around noon, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Jessica standing there, her makeup streaked from tears, her once flawless hair a tangled mess. She looked nothing like the glamorous woman from the night before. She was clutching her designer purse like it was the last thing tethering her to reality. Mark, she choked out, her voice trembling, please, can we talk? I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. Talk? You mean the way you were going to talk to me about screwing 3 men behind my back? Sure, Jessica, let's talk. She winced, as though the words physically hurt her. I know I messed up. I know I lied. But, you didn't have to destroy me like this. Destroy you? I laughed bitterly. Jessica, I didn't destroy you. You did this to yourself. All I did was make sure the truth came out. She stepped closer, lowering her voice as if she was worried the neighbors might hear. Mark, I can fix this. We can fix this. Please, I'll do whatever it takes. Fix it? I said, shaking my head. You think this can be fixed? You humiliated me, Jessica. You turned our marriage into a joke, and now that your lies have caught up to you, you want me to help you? You must be out of your mind. She started sobbing then, big, dramatic tears that might have worked on me a year ago. But now, they just felt like another manipulation tactic. I've lost everything, she whispered. My friends, my career, even James won't speak to me anymore. Please, Mark, I need you. Jessica, I said, my voice cold, the only thing you've lost is your mask. The real you is out there now, and no one wants anything to do with it. That's not my problem anymore. I shut the door in her face, her sobs echoing on the other side. The legal battle. Over the next few weeks, Jessica tried every trick in the book to salvage what was left of her life. She filed for a divorce, claiming emotional abuse in a desperate attempt to shift the narrative. I wasn't surprised. Jessica had always been good at playing the victim, but I was ready for her. My lawyer, Diane, was a shark in the courtroom, and with the mountain of evidence I had against Jessica, the divorce proceedings were over before they even began. The judge awarded me the house, most of our savings, and even my car, another one of Jessica's gifts that had probably been funded by her side hustles. Jessica was left with nothing but the clothes on her back and whatever scraps her lawyer could negotiate. But the most satisfying moment came when Diane handed over the financial records I'd collected. The judge took one look at the payments Jessica had received from James and the others and ruled that she had violated our prenup. Not only did she lose her claim to any of our shared assets, but she also owed me a hefty settlement. Watching her face as the verdict was read was worth every sleepless night I'd endured. James' fall from grace. James didn't escape unscathed, either. His wife, Patricia, filed for divorce within days of the gala. Turns out, Patricia had suspected James was cheating for years but never had concrete proof, until I handed it to her on a silver platter. The divorce was messy, public, and utterly devastating for James. He lost his company, his reputation, and most of his assets. The last I heard, he was living in a small apartment on the other side of town, far away from the luxury lifestyle he once flaunted. Life goes on. As for me, life slowly returned to normal. I spent the first few months after the divorce focusing on myself, going to the gym, reconnecting with old friends, and throwing myself into work. It felt good to reclaim my independence, to build a life that wasn't tethered to Jessica's lies. But the most surprising change came when I met someone new. Her name was Emily, a down-to-earth, funny, and kind woman who worked as a graphic designer. We met through mutual friends, and from the moment we started talking, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: hope. Emily knew all about what had happened with Jessica. My story had become something of a local legend, but she never judged me for it. Instead, she admired the way I had handled myself, the way I had fought back. The final twist. Months later, I got an email from Jessica. It was short, almost pitiful. "Mark, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I'm living with my sister now, trying to figure out how to rebuild my life. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be." I stared at the email for a long time before deleting it. Jessica didn't deserve a response, not after everything she put me through. Revenge had been sweet, but the real victory was knowing that I'd come out of this stronger, wiser, and ready to embrace the future. And as I sat on the porch of my new home, Emily by my side, I realized something. Jessica had taken so much from me, but she'd also given me something in return. She'd shown me just how much I was capable of surviving, and for that, I would always be grateful.